Hare Krishna. So thank you very much for coming today for this Sunday program. And today I won't be giving any class. So we'll just start with question answers. Does anyone have any questions? I'll start with one topic, then you can lead on. One of the most common questions which anybody from a spiritual perspective has, anybody who thinks deeply about life is, why do bad things happen to good people? Has anyone had this question? Anyone? Okay. Yeah. All of you are good people, so the bad thing that is happening to all of you is that you have to hear my class. It's okay. So, I personally had this question for many years because when I was 1, I got polio and I just couldn't walk normally. And there was still, maybe I was 6 or 7. It was to gnaw me. I couldn't play like normal with other children. And then my parents would always assure me. They would say that what they told me never really pacified me. But when I was in school, and there was one friend of mine, so I had got full marks in maths at that time. And then he had failed completely. And then I was trying to explain maths to him. It is simple maths. At the age of 7, what is the difficulty? But he just couldn't get it. And then I was thinking it's so simple. He just didn't get it. Then at that time it struck me that he was not lazy. He was not apathetic. He just didn't have. Later on, I understood the concept of IQ. That he just didn't have the IQ level to understand that maths. So it struck me that actually life is unfair to everyone. It may be unfair to me in the sense that I have some physical inability, but for somebody else it will be intellectual inability. And at least in my case you can say that because the disability is visible, so I get some amount of sympathy, some amount of support. People help me to carry my luggage. If I'm slipping, somebody holds me. But if somebody has intellectual inability, people just condemn him. Why are you not like that person? Why are you so lazy? Why are you so incompetent? So it has struck me that actually everyone has some or the other crippling inabilities. Some people can't speak properly. They just start stammering and stuttering, especially when they have to speak in public. Some people have stage fright. So everybody, if we consider, we all have some things which are deficient within us. And life is unfair. It's unfair to everyone. The degree of unfairness may vary from person to person. But it is unfair. So then that raised the question for me, why is it like that? So my parents at that time told me that actually whatever God has taken from you in physical ability, He has given you in intellectual ability. Then it struck me, who is this being God who has so much control over my life that He can choose what to give and what to take? And of course, I was still a child and these questions would come. Sometimes I would think about them. But if you don't get answers to questions, you just move on with life. It was in my engineering days that I stumbled across the Bhagavad Gita. And there, for the first time, I got what seemed like a reasonable explanation. That is, that actually we are souls. And we have been through many lifetimes. And the situations that we face in this lifetime, they are often the result of what we have done in the previous life. So some people are born wealthy, some people are born poor, some people are born healthy, some people are born sickly. Why is this difference there? So one explanation, basically we can have three explanations for this. That things happen by chance and life is terrible. If some people are just unlucky, like life is like a lottery, and some people are losers in the lottery. So if bad things are happening to you, just you are unlucky. That's your luck, live with it. Now this is a very disempowering worldview, because none of us lives like this. At least from this life's perspective, we try to look for causal connections. Okay, if I'm falling sick, maybe I need to take care of my diet, do some more exercise, take some proper medicines. And then I at least act on the assumption that that will heal me. So we implicitly accept a cause-effect connection. And we can't function without cause-effect connection. So when we accept this cause-effect connection, in the sense that if somebody comes home with a bruised face, he says, what happened? He says, no, just the bruise came like that. What? Oh, bruises don't come like that. What happened? What did you do? Did you get into a fight with someone? Did you hit something? So whenever we see an effect, we look for a cause. And we have this condition. So this is two ways. So whenever we already see an effect, we presume there must have been a cause for it. And we often do actions hoping that it will produce certain effects. Like if I'm sick, I take certain medicines hoping that there will be an effect, that I'll get healthy by that. So we never live without the idea of cause-effect. We can't function without that. So for the small things in our life, or for the many things in our life, we accept cause-effect. But for the big things, what kind of family we are born in, a wealthy or a poor family, what complexion we are born with, dark or fair, what IQ level we are born with. Is there no cause-effect for that? It just doesn't make sense that cause-effect we accept for most of things in our life, but for the big things in our life, so there's no cause-effect. How does that make sense? So one explanation is that it's by chance. The other explanation is what is offered by the Abrahamic religions. The Abrahamic religions are Judaism, Christianity and Islam. They all accept Abraham as one of their prophets. So these say that all that happens in this world is by God's will. That means that God made somebody poor, that God gave somebody low IQ, that God made somebody crippled, that God made somebody with some learning disabilities. Then why would God be discriminated like this? And if God is discriminated like this, then how can we devote ourselves to such a discriminatory God? If we have to devote ourselves, we can devote ourselves to a person who is virtuous, who is fair, who is compassionate. If God is so discriminatory and so arbitrary, how can we worship or devote ourselves to such a God? So in many ways, it is this belief that God, that whatever has happened in the world is God's will, and we have to accept it. This makes atheism seem more preferable than theism. Now, better than believe a God who is so unfair and arbitrary is to believe that there is no God. So atheism increases when if among these are the only two options we have, that things happen by chance or things happen by because God wants them like that. Then better accept chance, of course. So, but there is a third possibility. The third possibility is that things happen neither by chance nor by God's will. They happen by our own past actions. If they happen by our own past actions, that means that we, from our past lives, did certain good actions, certain bad actions. And those have accumulated and they created the conditions in our life. And some of us have some good conditions, some bad conditions. That's because of our own past karma. And this understanding, it both reconciles, on one side, our implicit acceptance of cause and effect. That we do accept cause and effect, yes, and cause-effect connection is there. It doesn't deny that. And secondly, it also accepts that God is fair. It is not God who is causing the bad things to happen to us. It is our own bad actions which are giving bad reactions. So this is the basic answer that I got from the Bhagavad Gita of why bad things happen to good people. That's because we ourselves have done certain bad things in the past. So, as I said, I wanted to keep this a short class. So, I'll stop over here. Are there any questions which anyone would like to ask? Yes, please. Okay.
So, you said that it depends on our past life. So, could you explain a little bit more on how do we know that it's coming from our past life? Like, is there any evidence that it's actually related to our past, or there is anything like that?
Okay. So, is there any evidence that there is a past life from which something like this has come? It depends on what we mean by the word evidence. If you want hard evidence, that in terms of, say, mathematical logic or observable facts, or like a mathematical reading in an instrument, we don't have that. It's like, suppose somebody asks, does your mother love you? What do you think? Of course you may say, why ask a question? You are insulting my mother by asking a question like that. Of course my mother loves me. Ask, what is the scientific proof that your mother loves you? Well, you cannot give a scientific proof for that. There is no mathematical equation which is proved now. So what we can do is inference. Now, I can talk about hundreds of incidents. The only reasonable inference from all those incidents is that my mother loves me. That's why she did like this. That's why she did like this. That's why she did like this. So when we talk about evidence, for many important things in our life, we don't have hard evidence, like either facts or mathematically rigorous proofs. What we have is inferences. So similarly, with respect to past lives, what we can do is look at it from an inferential perspective. Is this a reasonable inference that there are certain things which we can see and know, and that within what we see and know, some things we can explain and some things we can't explain. Or rather, to put it another way, sometimes to explain the observable, we postulate something that is unobservable. Say, for example, Newton saw the fruit falling. Which fruit was it? Apple. That time there were no Apple computers, otherwise people would have been confused. What fell down? So, when the apple fell down, some people say it fell in front of him, some people say it fell on his head. Wherever it fell. So all that he saw was the observation. But how do I explain this? What makes this apple fall? So to explain an observable phenomena, he came up with an unobservable principle. Gravity is unobservable. You cannot observe gravity. You can observe the effects of gravity. So from the falling of the apple, you could say that in inferences there is gravity. So similarly, if there were a past life, okay, let's start with another way, that we see differences in the world right now. So how do we explain those differences? So we postulate something invisible to explain something visible. So the differences that we see in people now A reasonable explanation for that could be that they have acted differently in their previous lives. Now, if you want to be more precise about this, we can consider twins. Twins, I was in London, I was giving a talk and I mentioned this point, and then one person in the audience got up. So I was talking about, there are certain twins you are called as identical twins, monozygotic twins. Their genes are exactly same, not just nearly same, exactly same. And yet, these two twins who are identical are not identical. They're genetically identical, but they're personality-wise different. So what makes them different? Their biology is fully the same. There is something beyond the biology in their personality that accounts for their difference. Further, so again, this is an observation. What's the inference? Like I said, how do I know my mother loves me? Oh, that night I was so sick, and my mother, she took me to a hospital, although she herself was sick. Or when my treatment was needed, she was ready to sell her own ornaments to get money for that. There are multiple incidents. The only reasonable inference from those incidents is my mother loves me. So like that, first is the inequities of life itself. Why are they there? Then the difference among identical twins. And third could be the scientifically researched past life memories. There are many stories, or case studies rather, of scientists who have found out children who suddenly remember their past lives. Hare Krishna, what is your name? Abhinav Krishna. Oh yeah, we have met the other day. Okay. How old are you, Abhinav?
10.
10. Oh, you're too old. Okay. Who is there? Oh, Hare Krishna. What is it? How old is he?
He's 5.
5. Okay, he's also old. No, why I'm saying too old? Sometimes there are children who are just 3 or 4 years old, and suddenly they come to their mom, where's my other mom? What? Then they say, I want to go and meet my other mom. What do you mean by other mom? And then they start insisting they have precise recollections of their past lives when they had another mother. And if they take you to that place, they have recognitions. They go, oh, this is my mother, this is my brother, this is my sister. They also remember, this is the place where I lived, this is the place where I played. And there are behaviors. There are behaviors which are similar to how they would have behaved. There was this case of a boy named Titu, who claimed to be Rajiv Sharma from a previous life. And he said that I own an electrical shop named Rajiv Verma Electricals. And this 4-year-old boy, he said, I have a wife. And her name is Neeta. And then he went to send his relatives went and saw over that there was actually a Verma Electrical studio. And it was run by a widow named by the same name. And then he went there and he recognized her. And now this guy's children from a previous life were older than this boy. But when he went there, he started fondling their hair as if they were his children. And he treated this old woman, reasonably older woman, who had never he had seen, he treated her like she was his wife. And not only that, he had been killed in a murder attack. So at point blank, he had been shot when he had returned from his home in a car. So the bullet had entered from one side and gone out from the other side. So at the place where the bullet entry and exit wounds were there, the post-mortem report showed, at that exact same place, this T2, his name was T2 in this life, he had prominent birthmarks. So birthmarks at the entry point, birthmark at the exit point. And the birthmark at the exit point was slightly larger. When the bullet goes out, it becomes, because of the trajectory, it causes more damage. And it's not just one case, there are scores of cases like this across all continents. So this has no explanation, no reasonable inference other than that there's a person who lived previously and has moved here. Okay, so like that, so from multiple evidence, multiple observations, we can make a reasonable inference that we have had previous lives. Okay? Okay. Any other questions?
Prabhuji, thank you so much for a nice talk. And so you started by saying why bad things happen to good people, and then we came to past life. It feels so hopeless and helpless to see that my past life is dictating me. It feels so hopeless to be pre-programmed.
Were you pre-programmed to ask this question? So, somebody asked me a question once that, we don't have any free will. We are all controlled by our past. Then I replied, I also don't have the free will to answer this question. So, yes. Actually, our past determines our situations. It does not determine our decisions. It determines our situations, not our decisions. It's like if we are driving. The kind of car that we are driving, the kind of weather and traffic that we will encounter, that is determined. But how we drive the car is up to us. So similarly, our body is like our car. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. So Krishna says we are all on this yantra. The body is like a machine on which we are all situated. So this machine, the kind of car that we have, that is determined by our past car. Like I said earlier, our complexion, our height, not exactly our height, yes, genetically also our height is often fixed. Our nationality, our IQ levels, these may be fixed. The kind of car we have is fixed. And also the kind of conditions that we will meet when we are driving the car. Good weather, bad weather, heavy traffic, light traffic, that is also fixed. But how we drive the car is up to us. So our driving ability is something which we can learn and improve. So therefore, our choices, our circumstances may be determined by our past, but our choices are determined by our present. And so therefore it's not hopeless. Because we can always choose in our situations. And if we choose wisely, then we can. Somebody might have a very slow moving, noisy car. But if they drive carefully, they can reach their destination safely. Somebody may have a fast, shiny, big car. But if they drink and drive, they will reach the graveyard, not their destination. Isn't it? So our past determines our situations, not our decisions. We are not programmed. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, we'll come to you. Now we can ask, we can come to you. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. When you started saying why bad thing happens to good people, that's like an age-old question, and then everyone goes through that, especially when you're going out and talk to people. This is very common one that is being asked. The answers are exactly what you said, and we also try to tell people that there is something governing the world, there are laws. But when a devotee goes through some situation, which is, I'm actually personally encountering that right now. One of my devotee friends' son, who is 20-year-old, left the body, and while he was going through his recovery from blood cancer, leukemia, my friend really tried very much, praying to Krishna and saving him, and he was like trying to come up with a story that, okay, Krishna saved my son, at the end something like that will happen. And because that did not happen, he is coming up with this notion of why Krishna is so cruel and didn't save my son, and my son was so much of a nice devotee, he did everything he could, he went to Mayapur, this. So how do we, in one sense we understand Krishna does best for you when you're trying to serve him. But on the other hand, when somebody is leaving the body or some atrocities that they go through, we cannot really say that, right? That happened good for you or something like that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I just want to share that and see what
Okay.
you think I can tell my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. So if somebody has lost their young son and they prayed to Krishna and hoped that some intervention would happen, but it didn't, then they start thinking that God is cruel. So how do we explain at that time? Yes, there are some times for giving an explanation, and there are some times for giving support. We shouldn't think that every situation is a situation for giving explanations. So if we consider, something similar happened in the Mahabharata. Abhimanyu, which is a 16-year-old boy, and he was killed brutally. He was a hero and he was unfairly killed by 6 warriors. And Abhimanyu, when Abhimanyu was killed, Arjuna was shattered. And Arjuna, he lashed out at his brothers. He said, are all your ornaments just are all your weapons just bangles? Could any of you not protect my brother son? And then he turned and lashed out at Krishna also. Krishna, you must have known. Why didn't you tell me? And he was furious. And at that time, Krishna did not say that everything that happens is good. Krishna didn't say, don't question my will. What Krishna said was, oh Arjuna, your brothers loved Abhimanyu as much as you loved them. He was not just your son. He was the son of all of us. Your brothers are in as much grief as you are. Please don't speak words that increase their grief. We are all in this together. And then as Arjuna heard that whole story, he came to a conclusion. The conclusion was that Jayadratha, and his brothers told him that we had a plan, that he would break into the Chakravyuh and then we will follow. And then we would all, that was the plan, to save our army from being devoured by the Chakravyuh. But then Jayadratha came in. When Jayadratha came in, that was the time we couldn't go in. And he deliberately stopped us. Then Arjuna decided Jayadratha is the cause. And he, so in such an evil way, plotted so that my son would be separated from his helpers. That's how he was slaughtered. Then Arjuna directed his anger towards Jayadratha. So what is happening in this is that anything that happens, we can put it in different causal boxes. Causal box means cause and effect. This is a box. So, for example, right now, if this mic stops working, then I could put in a causal box. Hey, did I touch the button over here by accident? It turned off. That could be one causal box. The other could be that has this mic itself could become defective. Third could be that, has somebody switched off the power? The fourth could be that maybe the power supply in this whole area is broken down. The fifth could be maybe America has been attacked by terrorists and all the power plants in America have been stopped. So now every event could be extrapolated, or rather could be put in various causal boxes. So now, imagine if in your house you have someone and the light goes off and they start saying, hey America is attacked by terrorists. He says, what happened? What's wrong with you? Why are you being paranoid like that? So if we escalate something to too large a causal box, then we can't function constructively. So to be intelligent, to be able to function intelligently in the world, we need to place things in the most constructive causal box. Not necessarily right or wrong causal box, most constructive. So if the mic has stopped working, then the most constructive causal box could be that maybe this mic is switched off, or maybe this mic is defective. Let's start with the most constructive causal box, yes, and then move upward. So similarly, now if we consider sickness, now if there is a causal box in which we are going to put, okay, why did the sickness come? Why did the sickness not get cured? Now we could somehow, how it works is that like I read a book which was like a comedy book, in which the author in his acknowledgement said that everything right in this book, everything good about this book is because of me, and everything bad about this book is because of my editor. So that is why he was joking, of course, but it's a very self-serving way of looking at things. So similarly, when something bad has happened to someone, do we need to each time escalate it to the God box? That, okay, why did this disease occur? Well, because cancer is just so widely prevalent in today's world, and with that cancer has not yet been cured. It is not that just because we are devotees, we expect Krishna to change the rules of the game for us. That is not bhakti. That is not that there are certain rules of the game. Is it that Arjuna did not ask Krishna, Krishna, I am your devotee, so why do I have to fight? You just defeat all my enemies. No, Arjuna fought wholeheartedly. So, if we think that the purpose of bhakti is to get God to change the rules of the game for us, then we will soon be disappointed. The purpose of bhakti is to get us God's blessing so that we can play the game better. But the rules of the game will not change. It's like, say, suppose somebody has diabetes, and then there is gulab jamun prasad, and they take gulab jamun. Oh, this is prasad. How can I say no? And then they get a diabetic attack. You say prasad is spiritual. Well, the rice dal chapati was also spiritual, isn't it? Why did you take the gulab jamun only then? So, we don't expect Krishna to change the rules of the game. So, at a material level, things happen, at material cause and effect is there. So, it is not that if somebody is sick and we pray, necessarily God will intervene. And if God doesn't intervene, that doesn't make God cruel. There are things which happen in life, and okay, why did you get this disease? Sometimes just some diseases, like, they just don't know the cause of those diseases. But we try the treatment. If it doesn't work, what can we do? You see, generally, whenever anything good happens to us, we don't very often escalate it to God's level. How did you succeed? I worked so hard. I sacrificed so much. Why did you fail? Fate is so cruel. Well, it is said that success has many parents and failure is an orphan. So it's difficult, but I think if you understand that, so basically what happened, and I'll complete this answer. We may not be able to say all this to that person, but what I'm saying is Krishna also did not give a philosophical explanation over there. Krishna just was there with him to support him. And then Arjuna himself placed that event in the most constructive context. The most constructive context was, this Jayadratha was responsible for the death of my son, so I'll bring him down. And the next day, Now, it was the worst day for the Kauravas because Arjuna was infuriated. And they brought their whole army to stop him from reaching Jayadratha, and still Arjuna penetrated through it all. So we need to help others. Our purpose should never be to thrust our philosophy down someone who is down. Our philosophy, our purpose should be to help people arrive at the most constructive explanation for that situation. So, if somebody's son has unfortunately passed away like this, then you say that now you loved your son, but at a physical level he's not there with you. You can't do anything for him, but his soul is still there. If you pray for him, if you worship him, if you do some bhakti for him, you can still benefit his soul. So that is a constructive frame of reference to put it in. Or you could say that this cancer is incurable. Maybe I'll become a cancer researcher, or I'll support cancer research. Or you could put it in some other constructive framework. That actually, there are cures for cancer, but they're not so well known. If I had known about this cure, maybe we would have tried it. So we have to find out within our situation what is the most constructive frame of reference. One constructive frame of reference could be that we are in this world, we have relationships. The relationships in this world are temporary, and we also need an eternal relationship. So we have to help them find the most constructive frame of reference in which they can place that situation. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for a nice class.
It was nice because it was so short.
Open discussion. So, it's good to have open discussion, right? Yes. So, my question is, due to our past life, you are having some negative situations in your life, in this life. So, we cannot skip those negative situations, right? So, how do we overcome of that situation, stay positive and think positive?
Okay. So we cannot escape the situations from our past life. So how do we stay positive? See, broadly, any situation we are in, no situation takes away our power to do three things. I call it open a new tab in your life. Say if we are working on a computer and some horrible scene comes up on that computer. And then we just open a new tab. I don't want to see this. I'll see something else. So tab is, first it's an acronym. Thoughts, attitude and behavior. That whatever situation we are in, it doesn't control what we think about. Yes, there is a problem and we have to think about it to see how we can deal with it. But we don't have to constantly keep thinking about the problem. So if we can turn our thoughts towards something more constructive, ultimately we can turn our thoughts toward Krishna. I am sick and I'm on my bed. Suppose I am bedridden because I got a fracture. Now I can think about how unfair this fracture is, how everyone else is enjoying and I am suffering over here. I feel sorry for myself and I start snapping at others. I become irritable. And some people are sick and they make their caregivers sick of them. So instead of that, so thinking about myself and what a sorry situation I am in, if I turn and think about Krishna, maybe hear about Krishna, sing about Krishna, read about Krishna, think about something constructive. I am physically restricted, but nobody controls what I think. We always have the power to choose our thoughts. Not 100%, because we have to think about our situations also. But we don't have to constantly keep thinking about our situations. So what we think about is in our control. Then A is attitude. Attitude is with what attitude we look at that situation. We can say that life is terrible. Life is terrible, life is unfair. And we'll just feel sorry for ourselves. Or we can look at it with a spiritually positive attitude. A spiritually positive attitude means that I didn't address that point in your question. Sometimes we say that everything that happens is good. Now, there is this Gita Sar, which many of you may have seen, which people put in their shops and other places. So one of the things they say is, जो हुआ वो अच्छा हुआ, जो हो रहा है वो अच्छा हो रहा है, जो होगा वो भी अच्छा भी वो भी अच्छा ही होगा. Whatever happened is good, whatever is happening is good, whatever will happen will be good. Now, I have read the Gita hundreds of times and I have not found any verse like this in the Gita. The Gita is not so much talking about what happens to us. It talks more about what we do. So, the Gita doesn't say that everything that happens is good. But what it does indicate is that everything that happens can be for good. It is not that everything that happens automatically is good. Bad people do bad things, and that's bad. It's not necessarily a good thing. But even from the bad, good can come. So the universe ultimately moves purposefully. So what does this attitude mean? Let's say if we are in a situation of order, and then from order suddenly chaos comes up. What is that? What does that mean? That means, say now all of you are sitting here. And order means when we do something and we get the expected result. So you ask a question and you get a reasonable answer. Suppose you ask a question and suddenly the person sitting next to you slaps you in the face. Hey, what happened? Isn't it? That would be chaos. What happened? So when we do something and something entirely unexpected happens, that's chaos. So often our life moves from order to chaos. When it moves from order to chaos, a spiritually positive attitude means from that chaos a higher order will come. That chaos is there now, I can't deny it. But if I act properly, if I grow, if I act purposefully, from that chaos order will come. It's like, say, a woman is pregnant. Now, when the baby is inside her womb, it's order. The mother is taking care of the baby and she's feeding, the baby is fed. But then, the labor pains start. It's chaos. Suddenly what pain from where? But if the mother tolerates, if the mother keeps pushing, and then gradually the baby emerges, then there's a better order. New life is born. So order, chaos, order. So we don't deny the chaos that is there in our life. But a spiritually positive attitude means from the chaos, a higher order will emerge. So now, to give another example for this, which will relate to the third point. So thoughts, attitude, and third is behavior. What we think about is up to us. With what attitude we look at our situation is also up to us. The situation doesn't control that. And how we behave is also up to us. How we behave means that we may say, no, the situation doesn't allow me. Like if I am fractured, if I have a fracture and I am bedridden, he says, what my behavior is controlled, I can't go anywhere. But we are never as powerless as we think. No matter how bad any situation may be, it never takes away our power. No situation can take away our power to make that situation worse. That means I may have a fracture in one foot and I may be bedridden, but I can take a hammer and fracture my other foot also. Now, what this means is that if I can make things worse, then I can also make things better. I'm not as powerless as you think. So now I might be able to do it in a small way. Small way is that, okay, while I'm in my bed, maybe let me do a little exercise so that my leg does not atrophy. So in that situation, start with small, simple steps. If we look at our own lives, immediately we can list 3 things which we can do and we should be doing, but we are not doing. And we know if I do these things, I can make my life better. And I can list 3 things which we should not be doing, but which we are doing, and that is making our life worse. We're not talking about big changes, small things are doable. Just start with that. So we can all take small, simple steps to create a better situation for ourselves. Maybe this small, simple step, one step you can take is always turn toward Krishna, pray to Krishna. But along with that, we can also do something practical. So even if we take small steps, we can create a better situation for ourselves. So this open a new tab in our life, that how we think, how we act, how with what attitude we see and how we behave. No situation controls that. We can choose that always. And by opening a new tab, we can create a brighter future for us, no matter how bleak our present may be. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. So in the Mahabharata instance that you spoke about Abhimanyu, I think Lord Krishna had given Abhimanyu how to enter the Chakravyuh while he was in Subhadra's womb, but he had purposely not explained how to get out of it. And if he wanted, he could have saved Abhimanyu. So why did he, not tell him how to exit, and why did he not save Abhimanyu? What's the story behind that?
Okay, is it that Krishna did not deliberately give the knowledge to Abhimanyu and that's how Abhimanyu was killed? Well, that's not exactly the story. It was Arjuna who was speaking to Subhadra, not Krishna. And Subhadra did the mistake we all do commonly. She went to sleep during a class. So, Subhadra had asked, how do you break a Chakravyuh? Now for her, it is more like a casual curiosity. She was not going to fight and get into Chakravyuh. But Abhimanyu inside her womb was also hearing. And Arjuna was speaking, but after that she probably had worked very hard on that day or whatever. She nodded off. And Arjuna was speaking, and then he looked, oh, she's gone to sleep. He stopped speaking. So then he stopped speaking, so Abhimanyu heard half the story. And Abhimanyu was just 16. So nobody thought that he would ever need to use Chakravyuh knowledge. So others could have taught him, but at that time he was 16 and just that he didn't know about it. Now, was all this Krishna's plan? That's very difficult to know. Okay. Let me complete this. That I take another incident. That before the Kurukshetra war, when Vyasadeva and other sages come and tell Dhritarashtra that please stop your son from antagonizing the Pandavas. If he doesn't give the Pandavas' kingdom back to them, there will be a terrible war and your whole dynasty will be destroyed. So at that time, Vyasadeva tells him, Dhritarashtra says, actually, isn't everything determined by destiny? Maybe this war is also the will of destiny. And if that is so, then what can I do? So Vyasadeva becomes very grave. And he says, the workings of destiny are very difficult for us to know. What we can know is our duty. So contemplate deeply, O Dhritarashtra, what is your duty in this situation and act accordingly. After the war gets over and all his 100 sons are killed, and Dhritarashtra is lamenting terribly. At that time, Vyasadeva again comes to him. And Vyasadeva tells him that, oh Dhritarashtra, do not lament. This war was the will of destiny. Now what's going on over here? Earlier he said destiny is very difficult to know, but now he's saying there's the will of destiny. So the point over here is, philosophy doesn't exist in isolation from context. Ultimately, the purpose of all philosophy is to help us to act in the most constructive way. So when something is going to happen in the future, and when we are to choose some action, then we need to act to the best of our capacity. That's why at that time he said, you don't know what is destiny, but you know what is your duty and act accordingly. But now something has already happened. Now if we keep thinking about this, oh maybe I should have stopped my son, maybe why didn't I stop the Duryodhana? That lamentation will simply waste his energy. So then he's telling you, okay, it has happened already. It's happened, see it as the will of destiny and move on. So then was the war Krishna's plan or was it not Krishna's plan? So here you have to understand that everything that happens may not be God's plan. But God's plan can act through everything that happens. Are you getting the difference? That it was not that Krishna's plan that Duryodhana should be so evil. It was not Krishna's plan that Dushasana disrobed Draupadi. But they did those terrible things. Now God is so expert. It's like, say, in a cricket match, if a captain is very expert, now he has one bowler who is supposed to bowl very well, but that bowler has a very bad bowling, is bowling very badly, and that bowler is being beaten everywhere. And now the batsman, the captain has the plan. This player is not playing the play, is not playing the part. But then the captain sees that this opposite player is hitting one after another, and is becoming very overconfident now. And then he expertly brings another bowler who just bowls in a way that deceives that batsman who has become overconfident. And their plan was to get that batsman out. This bowler couldn't do it, but the captain did that plan through another bowler. Now resourceful captains can do that. That even if plan A doesn't work, they have a plan B. So like that, we don't have to think of Krishna's plan like one fixed line. It is one direction, one purpose. So it is not that everything that everyone does is as per Krishna's plan. We are not puppets. We all have free will. And sometimes some people abuse their free will terribly. But still, even if some people abuse their free will, still, that doesn't mean that they will thwart Krishna's plan. Krishna is so expert that through it all, he will execute his plan still. So therefore, the point over here was that he was telling Dhritarashtra that at this point, before the war, think what your responsibility is. But now the war is over, your sons are dead, don't lament over it. That now, look at what your duty is. Accept that has happened as the will of destiny and move on in your life. So applying this to our context, now the way the Mahabharata analyzes it is that Abhimanyu's death was because of Jayadratha's deviousness. And Krishna goes along with that explanation. So when bad things happen in the world, is it Krishna's will? That's a difficult question to answer. Krishna doesn't want anyone to suffer. Sometimes there is necessary suffering, just like when somebody has to go through surgery. But that doesn't mean any cut inflicted on anyone is a surgery. There is some suffering that is necessary, but that doesn't mean any suffering that is caused by anyone is actually God's will. If I go and insult you, hey, why did you insult me? No, actually this insult is good for you to develop humility. I cannot rationalize my action like that, isn't it? So, if I am abusing my action, my free will, I am responsible. But the point is, Krishna can act through anyone's actions. But that Krishna can further his plan through anyone's actions. Or despite anyone's actions also. But that doesn't mean everyone's action is Krishna's plan. So rather than, so this particular story, at least I have not heard about it, at least Krishna's not speaking it partially. It is circumstance that Arjuna spoke and Subhadra did not hear fully. But she's not to be responsible, and Arjuna is also not responsible. It is Jayadratha who is considered responsible over here. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so I think there's one question which everyone has. When will this class end? Okay. So should we stop?
Can you say a little bit about Bhagavatam and Bhadra Purnima that's coming up, the
Sure.
significance?
Yeah.
It's on Friday this week.
Yes. So, much of what we discussed today about why do bad things happen to good people, that's an important question. But an even more important question is, or rather even more empowering question is, what do good people do when bad things happen to them? The question of why bad things happen is very difficult to answer. But what do good people do when bad things happen to them? And that is essentially what the whole Srimad Bhagavatam demonstrates. There are good people. Parikshit Maharaj is a good person, but suddenly for a small offense he is cursed. Prahlad is a small boy. He is attempted to be killed by his own father, no less. Time after time after time, how throughout history, when bad things have happened, how have good people responded to that? That is what the Bhagavatam teaches. And the Bhagavatam is a book which can give each one of us wisdom and strength to face life's difficulties. It can give us the inspiration to move forward even when life becomes dark. It can help us to see how great devotees in the past have charted their life journey. And ultimately, the Bhagavatam gives us a connection with Krishna. The Bhagavatam is Sakshat Krishna. So it's like getting the Bhagavatam into our house is like bringing Krishna into our house. In fact, Aarti is also performed of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam can be installed in the house. And we have a very accessible form of Krishna whom we can access and gain wisdom from. And even if we don't read, just the presence of the Bhagavatam in our homes can purify our homes. And if you give it to someone else, it can purify them. And at some time or the other, when they have some distress, Krishna is in their hearts and Krishna will point to them, read. Turn towards me, read this book. So the Bhagavatam has guided and inspired thousands and thousands of people, millions of people we could say, throughout history to find Krishna's shelter amidst life's storms. And it can help us and help our loved ones, help those whom we care for to find similar shelter. So this is one of the most precious gifts that we can give to anyone. And Bhadra Purnima is a time when giving the Bhagavatam is especially auspicious. And thousands of devotees across the world are working and they are distributing Bhagavatams to devotees. And this is a very auspicious time to get Krishna in the form of the Bhagavatam into our homes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.